Pregame.com.
Pregame.tv. We've got wildcard action on Sunday kicking off at 10 a.m. Pacific time. The matchup between the Colts and the Ravens from Baltimore. The Ravens laying 7, total 47. Wednesday night, I'm doing First Previews radio show with Andy Iskoe, and I'm looking at Sportsbook Spy, and I see where 76% of the tickets thus far had come in on the Indianapolis Colts in the game. And I'm thinking, wow, and I'm looking at the other games, and they're all 51 to 54%, nothing out of whack. They're down to 72% at the time that we shoot this video. So some tickets are coming in on the Baltimore Ravens. I was a little bit surprised that the love fest with Andrew Luck has continued into the postseason, especially when you consider going into last week's game against the Houston Texans. I had mentioned on the radio show that he was a 48% passer in his last 5 games. And in his last 3 games going into Week 17, he had been sacked 12 times. The offensive line was really letting him down.
Yeah, Indy, it's nice to hear when the public is usually on the dog real heavily. I mean, it's a good value on the favorite. You take a look at it. They're 4-4 straight up on the road, but look at the teams they beat. I mean, they beat Tennessee in overtime, Jacksonville, Detroit, and Kansas City. That's 3 of the 4 worst teams in the NFL. It's very similar to Atlanta when Atlanta played Carolina. Atlanta was great. They were 7-0 in games decided by a touchdown or less. Carolina was 0-7. But now we find the Colts 9-1 on the season this year in games decided by a touchdown or less. You could say, well, maybe the quarterback just has that ability to get them back in the game, ability to win. But if you follow math at all, chances are he's just getting lucky and the team's just getting lucky. And we've talked about some of his stats in the past. In fact, I did some videos with RJ Sunday, and he pointed out some of the stats comparing to RG3. I mean, RG3, when you take a look at the stats compared to the Indy quarterback, I mean, it's not even close. But Luck is considered a favorite to win the Rookie of the Year.
A couple weeks ago, some of the Colt metrics were worse than the Detroit Lions, to show you how weird this whole situation is with Indianapolis winning these games and advancing to the playoffs. I've got my first play already for next season set, as long as the future isn't too crazy. But I was talking about it with Fezzik when he was here a few weeks ago about the under on the Indianapolis Colts for next year for a couple of reasons. One of those things you mentioned, they played a very easy schedule. You mentioned a couple of wins against Tennessee. They played them twice. They played Kansas City, Detroit, Buffalo, Jacksonville, Miami, Cleveland. They've lost 2 of their last 3 step-up games, which split against Houston and then got blown out 59-24 by New England. In the win last week against Houston, Marco, they had only 265 yards of total offense. They have been outgained 408 to 273 in their last 3 games.
And the other part that we're not talking about is their defense on the road. Their defense on the road has been absolutely horrid this year. They gave up 41 to Chicago. They gave up 35 to the New York Jets. That's like a month against the Jets, okay? Detroit scored 33 against them. Houston scored 29 against them. Baltimore's going to score points this week. Baltimore defense has been soft this year. It's not the Baltimore defense that we've seen in the past. And I know Ray Lewis is coming back, but this is an injury that he's coming back from that tackling could be a problem for him. I mean, he's going to fill the gaps and everything, and it's going to be an inspiration having him on the field. But I don't know that it's going to be all of a sudden it's going to be a shutdown defense. Right. I don't see that. I think both teams are going to score some points, but I think Baltimore, people are looking at the way they finished the season, that they lost 4 out of their last 5. But guys, they lost to Pittsburgh. I know Pittsburgh, didn't make the playoffs, but the Pittsburgh Steelers in Baltimore is such a rivalry game. That was a tough game. Then they turned around and played Washington, a playoff team, played Denver. Right now, probably the best team in football, would you say? I mean, they're playing the way they're playing. They played the Giants. They beat the Giants. The Giants didn't make the playoffs, but they're defending Super Bowl champs. And then last week, they played Cincinnati, who's a team that's flying under the radar.
And Baltimore had a lot of reserves in there for a little bit.
And Baltimore had a lot of reserves. So Baltimore is a team that right now I think is a little bit undervalued, and there's just too much value on this Indianapolis team. It's a great story. We all love great stories, but sometimes the clock strikes midnight for Cinderella.
Wednesday night's radio show, I thought Andy Iskoe made a great point when he said when you go from preseason or from college and then preseason into regular season, we all know this, the level of speed, the quickness that things happen on the field are just night and day different. That's why a lot of guys can't make it. They're great in college, can't make it in the NFL. They can never get that speed factor to slow down and feel comfortable. Andrew Luck in that first game, if you remember, and a lot of the newbies on the Indianapolis Colts struggled badly on defense against the Chicago Bears after about the first 7 minutes of that game. And then he said, and then it takes another notch, another jump in speed when you go from regular season to the NFL playoffs. And I think that's where Baltimore has all that experience. Ray Lewis coming back, where they can, on both sides of the line of scrimmage, by the way, know the adjustments that have to be made for speed. I think what you're going to see here, we've seen Andrew Luck have struggle at times throwing the ball in the flat and getting away with it when they should have been picked off. I'm going to make this a free pick here, so I'm going to shut up and we'll get to it here in just a second. My free pick is this. I think he's going to throw a couple of picks here. It's going to either set up the Baltimore offense with short field situations, or you might get a pick six from the Baltimore Raven defense. I think they're going to be jacked up. I also think because he's going to have to, I think he's going to have to fight from behind, talking about Andrew Luck, he's going to have to put that ball in the air an awful lot. And I do believe that even though Ray Lewis is back, you mentioned his injury. It makes it tough to make all the tackles. He wasn't playing that well before the injury. I mean, he's the spirit of this team, no doubt about it, but he's not the same Ray Lewis as 3 years ago. And I think you're going to see Indianapolis put up a couple of touchdowns to help push this one over the total. Again, my free pick on this, Indianapolis, Baltimore, over the total. When we come back, we've got the Seattle Seahawks traveling to the nation's capital to battle the Washington Redskins. That's going to be a free pick from Bryan Leonard. Stick around for that and more right here at pregame.tv.